Item hashtag SCP-186. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-186 Site, which comprises an area of approximately 300 square kilometers, is to remain closed to the public under the auspices of a habitat restoration initiative for the European bison. An automated security perimeter is to be established, monitored by personnel at Remote Site 355. Security personnel are to patrol SCP-186 every 2 weeks. Any anomalies or phenomena observed within the security perimeter are to be documented and reported to the Director of Research. All known primary sources documenting the events of SCP-186 have been secured by the Foundation. These materials are to be stored at Archive Site 23. Due to the age of the materials and the possibility of deterioration, access to these documents is to be approved by the Site 23 archivist and handled at their direction. All instances of SCP-186-1 are to be secured in the munitions wing of Site 23. Description: SCP-186 is the site of an unrecorded military engagement occurring from July 24, 1917 to August 13, 1917 between elements of the Imperial German Army and the forces of the Russian Provisional Government as part of the long-running conflict of World War I and the lingering effects resulting from its aftermath. This conflict became known to its participants as the Battle of Husiatyn Woods in surviving accounts. In July 1917, an armed confrontation between a detachment of approximately 500 German soldiers and the remnants of a Russian division scattered during the German offensive counterattack at Kerensky took place at the location of SCP-186. The forces met in heavily forested terrain outside of Husiatyn, in what is present-day Ternopil Oblast, Ukraine. On both sides of the conflict, combatants deployed anomalous weaponry using technology that has not been duplicated or understood today. This battle ultimately resulted in the death or permanent incapacitation of all forces involved and approximately 300 civilians in its general area. SCP-186-1 consists of recovered weaponry dating to SCP-180-SIX's initial containment in 1917 and including the following: a highly modified weapon similar to the Skoda M1909 machine gun capable of causing extremely rapid tumor-like growths within the body of any organism larger than a common laboratory rat. Specially designed mortar ammunition to be fired from the 58mm Type II mortier containing a gas that causes animal cells to be unable to cease life functions. Barbed wire coated with an unknown hallucinogenic compound that permanently affects human test subjects upon entering the bloodstream. Remains of an unknown incendiary device believed to have detonated at the close of the long conflict, accounting for an estimated 34% of total casualties. British Imperial Issue Type No. 27 grenades containing a gas capable of passing through all filtration systems of the gas masks tested, causing humans to constantly experience the sensation of being burned. French 8x50 mmR rifle cartridges containing human bone powder in gunpowder place. Purpose unknown. Historical records indicate that the German detachment participated in the Battle of Husiatyn Woods at the behest of a Hungarian military advisor named Matyas Nemes, specifically pursuing the retreating group of Russian forces, which at the time included the French scientist, Dr. Jean Durand. Based on documents from the time, since suppressed by the Foundation, it is believed that these two individuals were responsible for the development and limited production of SCP-186-1 and had attached themselves to opposing sides of the Eastern Front for the express purpose of deploying these weapons in a combat environment. Research Report 186-7. November 4, 1923. A 3 square kilometers area in the southwestern portion of SCP-186 experiences a spontaneous tree dead zone. Decay occurs on a highly accelerated timescale, and the area is completely cleared of trees and other plants within 2 weeks. January 13, 1927. Despite temperatures consistently at -15 degrees Celsius, no snow is visible across the central portion of the site. Temperatures measured at the site are consistent with the surroundings. September 2, 1932. Sporadic gunfire sounds are recorded throughout the site, despite the lack of any observed civilian presence. The sounds persist for 3 days. September 30, 1936, agents Chekhov and failed to return from routine patrol of SCP-186. No trace of either person is recovered. May 15, 1941. Acting on intelligence sources embedded with the Third Reich, Foundation personnel evacuate SCP-186 prior to Operation Barbarossa. Following the dismantling of observation posts, a faint glow visible from 150 m is documented by personnel moving across the site. Visual contact not established prior to evacuation. October 29, 1945. Containment of SCP-186 has been re-established following discussions with Soviet Union officials. Following the first initial patrol following containment re-establishment, 13 corpses wearing uniforms and insignia of the German 4th Panzer Army and 27 corpses wearing uniforms of the Soviet 22nd Army are discovered in an advanced state of decomposition. No identification of the personnel is successful, as all identification papers and insignia had been removed prior to Foundation containment. February 19, 1959. Following the formation of a large landslide in the northeastern portion of SCP-186, 4 men are observed wandering the immediate area in a state of extreme disorientation, dressed in what are later identified to be severely decomposed World War I-era military uniforms of both German and Russian issue. The subjects are detained and sent to Site 23 for further investigation. February 4, 1959. Following extensive excavation of the Northeast Summit site, 23 individuals are discovered buried at a depth of 15 m in a mass grave, alive despite decades of burial, wounds, and injuries. As with the previously discovered subjects, most are dressed in remnants of World War I-era military uniforms and are presumed to be participants in the original SCP-186 event. Extensive investigation of Site 23 yields little information, as the subjects are unable to provide any meaningful information or communication to Foundation personnel due to extensive psychological trauma and profound mental disorders. Foundation personnel attempt to euthanize the subjects after 3 weeks of investigation, but fail in all attempts. The subjects are subsequently tranquilized, anesthetized, and then incinerated. July 29, 1962. Prior to improvements to the containment facility, SCP-180 SAXS perimeter security was found to be nearly 85 m larger than originally documented. Research later ruled out clerical error as the source of the discrepancy. December 13, 1975. Documented meteorological phenomena occurring solely and exclusively within SCP-186. These include sustained winds of up to 120 km per hour, 20 centimeters of rainfall, and temperatures temporarily reaching 48 degrees Celsius. December 8, 1987. Wolf packs, numbering some 200 in total, travel to SCP-186 within a point in the central region of the site and immediately disperse. March 3, 2009. A stand of 3 fir trees is observed on the southwest deforested area, the first documented plant life since the 1923 event. The estimated age of the trees is 50 years. Transcripts of selected SCP-186 documents. Document 186-3. Advertising pamphlet from May 1911. Lecture given by Dr. Durand at the Royal Institute of Chemistry. To End Wars. Presentation by visiting Professor Dr. Jean Durand, former member of the Academy of Sciences, promising that modern science will create weapons of terrible deterrent power and make future wars obsolete. Dr. Durand will explain the convergence of chemistry, ballistics, alienism, and other emerging scientific fields that will enable humanity to usher in a new era of peace and modernity. Lecture to be given on May 19th at the Derbyshire Lecture Hall. Document 186-11. Opinion piece published January 2, 1912. Edition of the Hungarian newspaper Népszava, written by Matyas Nemes. To my fellow subjects of His Majesty the Emperor Franz Joseph, truly, the greatest of human glories is the unification of disparate people in a single unstoppable purpose. That our wonderful union must embody this inescapable principle must be evident between Vienna and Budapest. But there are those, both within our territories and elsewhere on the continent, who see us splintered into 1,000 pieces and standing in the way of our destiny. What is to be done with such agitators and malcontents? While traitors and radicals are rightly hanged like the dogs they are, no execution is sufficient to smother the embers of treason that burn in the hearts of the Balkanites. How are we to demonstrate our unity of purpose, our power, our God-given place at the head of the European procession? By force of arms. The executioner can only strike fear into the hearts of dozens of people. A proper army can strike at the souls of millions. Perhaps we have the numbers, but in this we are not alone. The Russian and the Muslim can rally hordes from their flags, but for all their masses are mere rebellious nuisances. What separates man from the animals is not his numerical superiority, no, but his mental superiority, demonstrated through ingenuity and artifice. My fellow citizens, I have dedicated my life to building such manifestations of artifice that no one can stand against my weapons save the Almighty. It is through the force of superior arms that we will achieve our great project, both within our borders and without. Give me the factories, give me the manpower, give me the opportunity to serve our empire through my industries, and I will hand to the people the flaming sword that will light the way to a civilized Europe. It is through these means, and only these means, that we will resolve the issues that affect us today. Document 186 to 32. Telegram sent by Jean Durand to Matthias Nimes of Paris, April 28, 1912. I have considered the proposal. I must refuse. Inferior and derivative methods of own research. Your objectives are conquest. Mine are peace. Greetings, J. Durand. Document 186 to 39. Undated memorandum from General Felix Graf von Bothmeier of the Imperial German Army to unnamed subordinates. Effective immediately, Lieutenant Nimes is assigned to your unit as an advisor. Experimental armaments are only to be deployed at the request of Lieutenant Nimes. Despite the potential for a breakthrough on the Romanian front, it is prudent to use these unholy things until more is known of their efficacy. Rumors of a similar development among the Tsarists remain unsubstantiated. Document 186 to 52. Letter from Private Pyotr Avdakov, participant in the Battle of Husiadin Woods. Dearest Nadia, I have heard the rumors of the madness that is going on at home. Take comfort that this is nothing like the madness that is going on here. We thought that 4 years of war had taught us everything we had to know and more. We learned nothing. The damned Frenchman, who was the man chosen to lead us, both spoke of peace. He spoke of weapons so terrible that we could make the enemy surrender on the spot. We were fools. We had stayed in trenches with rifles and dead sticks in our hands. We believed him the way we believed no one who had supplies. We never thought about where this man came from. I don't ask why he had the weapons he did. We didn't care. We wanted to live. He never considered that the enemy had the same things we did. I don't think the Frenchman did either. Or, at least I hope not. I can't imagine a man who would go into this knowing what was going to happen. Maybe the Frenchman isn't a man. Maybe he's something else. I'm sitting now in a hole I dug in a forest somewhere. I should have run the second I saw the German aiming at Gilead. No bullets were fired at him. I couldn't look any further after his face fell, and he kept screaming. I thought I saw his hands pulling his head down. Somewhere in the distance Volokov is screaming that he can see demons roasting his children. He's been screaming the same thing for 5 days now. I should have run away so many times. The Frenchman gave us a new gas gun. We refused at first, remembering what had happened in Romania. But he promised us that this was different, that this would put our enemies down without harming them. Who wants more bloodshed? He asked us. We couldn't argue with that. We fired the mortars at a position ahead of us. A strange blue gas was seeping from behind the trees, but the Frenchman warned us to move forward carefully. One more thing, he said. He took one of our rifles and, taking aim, fired a single shot. Before we could ask how a scientist could know how to shoot, we heard a scream. He had hit one of the Germans. He handed me a pair of binoculars.
Take a look, he said.
I saw that the German was missing half his head, still screaming. I've seen it all in this war, but I've never seen faces like those on the Germans' faces when they saw their comrade. The Frenchman, his voice eerily calm, explained that his shot must have destroyed at least a quarter of the soldier's brain tissue. Enough to cause instant death, he said. But watch. I stared through the binoculars. The German didn't stop screaming. For at least 10 minutes he stared, unable to turn away. The Frenchman smiled. He smiled at this scene. The gas, he said, made sure that death would not come, regardless of injury. The Germans were too horrified by their comrade. Noticing that they weren't behind cover, the Frenchman lined up for another shot. The rest of the soldier's head was gone, and the screams were replaced by a kind of low growl, the likes of which I have never heard spoken of in men. I had to go out and vomit behind some bushes. I hadn't done so since the first trenches. Who could really keep fighting after such a thing? But fight they did. One time a group of ours was ambushed, and they were chased into a meadow. The first men who came out through the trees were hit with something that took their skin. I can't describe why seeing men torn to pieces is not as terrifying as seeing a perfectly skinned corpse on a battlefield, but our group scattered. We are no longer an army. Not anymore. We are animals, trapped in a forest together, not understanding. Sometimes, when Volokov sleeps, I hear the Frenchman in the forest, shouting in Hungarian, screaming and laughing. I almost prefer to listen to Volokov. I am going to die in this hole. I am too afraid of what is outside it to do otherwise. Minkin is going to try to face the horrors in the forest to escape. I am sending this letter to him in the hope that he will succeed. As I gave it to him, he joked that he will have a civil service commission after the war to deliver a letter from hell. I am not sure he is wrong.
Goodbye.
Pyotr.